Welcome to JWL Sports, where we review all the best sports clips from around the world. If this is your first time checking out a video, please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I would absolutely love to see you part of it. Without further ado, let's get to it. We're watching a clip of First Take with Stephen A. Smith and Shannon Sharpe talking about Eric Bieniemy, and how he's apparently going to be set to be the OC with UCLA. I'm really curious to see what they have to say, because so much around Bieniemy's lack of head coaching opportunities has been around race, right? It's all been about this is racist, 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 racist. I personally push back on that big time. That's just me, and I'm curious to see what they have to say, if that's one of the things that they're going to do, because to me, at this point, there's no way that we can just say that this is racism, right? It's one thing if the entire NFL and all the coaches and everyone was all white and he was like the first black coach ever and he just can't get it, then I could be like, all right, right? It's almost like a breaking the color, barrier at this point. But that's not the case. We have successful black head coaches, OCs, DCs, like we see it all the time in the NFL. Whether you want to argue that there should be more than there are now, or that racism has played a factor in the past, that's not really the conversation that I'm looking to have for this specific moment. It's just the fact that clearly they either don't like his personality, they don't think he's actually that good. That it's like there's clearly more to it than just he's a black guy and so he doesn't just get enough opportunities. Because that's just not what I believe we are seeing before our eyes. He didn't even get a head coaching job, in college, which is just kind of like you could be the OC of Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs and win and be a Super Bowl, big fat ring on your finger, and you're just gonna like be the OC for North Carolina, or I'm sorry, University of California of Los Angeles, of LA, UCLA. Like that doesn't make sense to me. It really, really doesn't. So I'm really curious to see what they have to say. Let's jump right into it and break it down from there.
Deal to join UCLA staff as their associate head coach / offensive coordinator. Bieniemy recently cleared the air, saying he decided to walk away from the Commander's role. In an email he sent to ESPN, Bieniemy wrote, quote, "I have no regrets with the Commanders. Contrary to what some think and what has been put out in the media, I was not fired. I actually just chose not to stay. Learned a lot, and that is always a good thing." I just want to remind everyone, that Bieniemy's first NFL OC job was in Kansas City, where, of course, he won 2 Super Bowls. So, Shannon, now looking back at how everything sort of played out with the quick stint in Washington, now going to the college ranks, not as a head coaching job, do you feel like Bieniemy made a mistake leaving the Chiefs?
I do, because they were already holding against him that he had Patrick Mahomes, and for a long part, he had Travis Kelce, he had Tyreek, and so they were already holding that against him. So what happens when you go outside of the purview of Andy Reid and you don't have a Patrick Mahomes and you don't have that? People are going to say, see, I told you, it was the offense. It wasn't his system. And now he goes back to college, and I get it. You're OC. Bro, you in college. You're not the head coach. Exactly. You're not the head coach. If he's the head coach, Stephen A.,
no problem.
No problem whatsoever, because we see offensive coordinators in the NFL get hit.
You guys sometimes want to say that I don't know what I'm talking about. I didn't watch this clip at all, and I just opened with that, and then that's exactly right.
Head coaching job in college, and there's no problem. But you going to leave the NFL and go back to college? Right. You should have just stayed where you were, bro.
I'm going to say something that nobody has said about Eric Bieniemy, because it's time that I say this. We've been fighting for this man for years.
Yeah.
Now we got to look at him. Prior to you landing in Washington as the offensive coordinator, you had interviewed for 15 head coaching positions with 14 different teams. None of them chose to hire you, okay?
Yes.
Now we've seen other black coaches getting opportunities,
3 of them,
right?
This year.
And it wasn't you. And now you've elected to depart for college. Something's wrong.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know what it is, but we can't sit up there and say black, 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 because other black coaches have been hired ahead of him.
Right.
And so now it's gotten to the point where it's been so long and you've had so many interview opportunities, I have no choice but to look at it and say, what's up with you?
Yeah.
My blood is boiling right now, okay? It's taking all my energy to not just want to scream, because I've been saying that it was not racism, and people like Stephen A., Shannon Sharpe, Emmanuel Acho were saying, racism, 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 okay? And now someone like Stephen A, who's always saying racism, he just said the other day he has to work harder at ESPN than, say, Pat McAfee because, his race, which I just think is asinine and absurd. One created a brand of being like Joe Cool and like, whatever, this is what I do. I got crap all over the place. And, this is his brand. And he built an audience that accepts that. And Stephen A built an audience around a very different personality. And that's just the way it goes. Everyone builds their own brands in different ways. And so that's just a little side point. But with Bieniemy, again, it's obvious. He interviewed for all these jobs and he didn't get them. It's obviously not a racing. Like I said, if there was just no black coaches whatsoever, right? And this was just, the first ever black person to just try to ever get a head coaching job, right? It's the 60s or whatever year. It's like, I could understand that argument. I could be like, okay, that makes sense. He's getting all these interviews, but they just don't want him, or they're just kind of doing lip service and this, that. We see black coaches being successful, getting head coaching jobs, being successful. Again, if you want to say it's not as much as you would like, that's fine. But that's not the scope of this specific conversation. And the fact that even, say, Stephen A and Shannon Sharpe now are saying, this is not racism right now, right? This is not racism. We're seeing other black coaches succeed and get jobs. And we're seeing, you interviewed for a lot of jobs and no one wanted you. And now you're leaving for college and you're going to be, like, he's not even getting a head coaching job, in college. I don't get it. I really, really don't. And again, if you wanted to be an OC, then yes, just stay with Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, right? And obviously, he wanted to go on. My guess is that, right, he wanted to become a head coach, obviously, hence why he was interviewing. He couldn't do it. And so now he says, okay, I'm going to go to, the Commanders, and I'll prove that I can do it outside of, Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. And it's like, that was already setting you up for failure in a lot of ways, because you chose the Commanders, who have been, within the last decade or so, a terribly run and owned franchise. And that's where you go? That's bad. That is already showing your lack of awareness and that you're not making smart decisions. So I'm already questioning you there. I'm already like, what are you doing? It's one thing if you went to the Commanders and, right, like this year, and they have the second pick or whatever pick it is, and he knows, all right, we're going to be drafting a quarterback. Like Cliff Kingsbury. That was smart now. He lost his head coaching job, which I think he's actually a good coach. I actually like Cliff Kingsbury a lot. He now went to the Commanders and is like, well, we're going to get a brand new quarterback. We're going to be able to build this offense from the ground up, and we should be able to put ourselves in a legit situation. And when I get this offense going and get everyone going, and I chose Dan Quinn, who I know is who's going to have that defense really, really legit, I am going to be able to win. I'm going to be able to succeed. And then there's going to be a bunch of opening jobs, and Cliff Kingsbury is going to be at the top of the list, right? It's going to be Kingsbury, Ben Johnson, whatever the guy's name is from Houston Texans. That's what's going to be. But if Cliff Kingsbury goes to, say, the Commanders a couple years ago, and he fails, no one's signing up to get Cliff Kingsbury. They're not going to be like, okay, so he failed in Arizona, and he had, not that great of a year with the Commanders. Why do we want him as an offense, as our coach right now? Why do we even want him as an OC? I don't know, right? It's just not smart at all, of what Bieniemy did. So again, that makes me question that. And I don't know if that's his move, if that's the people around him, his team. I'm not sure how he goes about making his decisions, right? In that regard, I don't think any of us do. Sometimes a lot of times it seems like it's always the guy who's making the decision, when in reality it's, your partner, it's your agent, and there's a lot of factors at play. But it probably does all come down to Bieniemy. And so the fact that he's kind of just floating all over the place, going from Kansas City to Washington to UCLA, it's weird. It's very, very weird. And even the Kansas City Chiefs having him come up there for a couple days or whatever they did for the week, it's just all weird to me. I genuinely can't make sense of it. And it seems like even Stephen A and Shannon Sharpe, they didn't really say much because it's hard to just make sense. The only sense that you have of it is that it doesn't make sense. It's hard to make sense out of nonsense. And if we can check off racism, and again, the reality is that he just may not be that good. And people just can't accept that. They can't accept that. And they want to say that it's race. Because if he was white, if he was a white OC and was winning with Patrick Mahomes and doing all that, if people said, oh, well, it's actually all Andy Reid and all Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce, people would not be fighting for him. They wouldn't be like, he is great. He needs an opportunity. What are you talking about? They wouldn't be fighting for him. But they fought for Bieniemy because they said, no, he's actually really good. He's not just successful because of Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. And the reason why he's being, not seen as great is because it's just a black man and the NFL is just keeping a black man down. And it's just like, so then now you get this extra defense of like, he's great, right? Like you oversell him, you overcompensate. And personally, I feel validated because I said, I don't think, what's happening is racism. It all was too weird to me years ago when we were really at the heat of all of this. And now I feel that when Stephen A. Smith and Shannon Sharpe are saying that this is not anything to do with race, well, you can take that to the bank. That is saying something quite large. But those are just my thoughts. What are yours? I would absolutely love to hear yours. I read every single comment. So if you think what I'm saying is the most ridiculous thing you've ever heard, please let me know in the comments below. If you think what I'm saying is the most amazing thing, then definitely please let me know. Either way, let's get into some discussions. Let's get into some fights. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. As I said, we are building an amazing community here, and I would absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of, and I think we're well on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. It really, really does help with the visibility and the algorithm, and I would greatly, greatly appreciate it. Thank you so much, and see you next time.